Hey there folks, Finley here. This is a short video for the power focus area on a playwright named Caryl Churchill. She's a British playwright, mostly associated with the Royal Court, which is the theatre in London that you would go to if you're going to see new plays. And she's been writing forever. Her first big hit was a play called Cloud 9 in 1979, and then she wrote lots of plays in the 1980s that are very famous. We'll talk about those, but she's still writing today. Her most recent one that had a sort of big impact was in 2012. It was called Love and Information. And so she's still very much around, still making a big impact on the theatrical world. And so she's a very strange playwright. Strange woman, writes strange plays, but that are very powerful plays. And those plays are really meant to attack and to blow up certain traditional things. So if you think of Aristotle, right? You know, I have a tattoo of Aristotle's dramatic structure on my arm. I love Aristotle. He talks about these 6 elements of theater. That in every play you've got plot, character, and theme or idea, what it's about, and then language, what the characters say, spectacle, what we see, and then what he called melopoia, which is music or rhythm or something like that. And most plays balance these sort of things. Caryl Churchill's focus is on that third one, idea or theme, what the play is about, what it's saying. And in the service of that, she is willing to mess with the other pieces and even blow up the other pieces to better examine this idea of theme. And so her plays are plays of ideas, but they are willing to do all kinds of crazy things with the other elements, very non-traditional things, in order to better explore those themes. So for example, one of her most famous plays is the play Top Girls, and it was a feminist play. It dealt with the idea of femininity and sexuality and power. And she realized that in order to really explore that, she would have to go in an opposite direction from the more classical, more male-centric, more patriarchal structures that had existed for thousands of years. So instead of going with Aristotelian structure that she saw as essentially male, the structure of the play is completely different. It is actually structured, if you want to know about it, on a meal. The very first scene brings together these powerful women from all throughout history, and they're having this huge banquet, and then we leave that after that first scene, which is this astonishing scene, and then we go into a more traditional play with characters, but that doesn't have a rising action or a clear protagonist, and that's on purpose, because she felt that if you're going to explore the idea of femininity, you had to use a structure that wasn't rooted in patriarchal masculinity. Now, I would argue personally that Aristotelian structure isn't necessarily patriarchal, but I get what she was saying, that if you're going to really explore an idea totally, you have to be willing to blow up some stuff as well. So she blew up structure. She also did this in her most recent play, Love and Information. Love and Information has 100 different characters played by 15 actors. So again, like Brecht did, she's blowing up the idea of characterization, making it very clear that this actor is not the same as this character, but rather this actor is their own person and they're stepping in and out of these characters. It has a number of scenes in it. No scene is more than 25 seconds long. So there's no rising action, there's no protagonist. So again, she's blowing up structure. And that play functions sort of as a mosaic. All these little teeny scenes, scene, by themselves don't mean anything. There's no linear progression. There's no forward action. And yet they form a mosaic. All those little pieces, twinkling pieces together, give us a sense of what it means to live and to try to love in this 21st century, overwhelmed as we are by technology and the fast pace of modern life. She felt that to explore that idea of the fragmentation of modern life, she would need to have a fragmented structure, and so that's what she did in Love and Information. Another thing that she's blown up is language, that other Aristotelian element of language. We're used to in plays a person talks, then another person talks, then another person talks, then another person talks. She said that's not how actual human beings communicate with each other. And so her most famous addition to the theatrical canon is this little slash mark, which she used Give me 1 second. To indicate, 1 second, when one person should interrupt another person. So I'm saying, how's the weather today? I know you can't read my handwriting, it doesn't matter. And I want this person to say, what's wrong with you, in the middle of my line. So she used that slash mark to indicate that that interruption happened right at that point, because she realized that real people do interrupt each other. So she blew up language in that way. And if you listen to her plays, we did one of them this year in 2018, a number where it sounds like they're just sort of talking and rambling and interrupting each other and interrupting themselves. Every one of those interruptions is scripted. It's not ad-lib at all. And yet it sounds really realistic because that's the way people talk. She was willing to blow up our traditional ideas of language in order to get at a more real sound, that hyper-realism. And she did it even more in plays like Love and Information, or Seven Jewish Children, which is her one of her other recent plays, where she'll have the lines on the page, but they're unattributed. It doesn't say what character is saying what lines. She's forcing the director and the actors to try and figure out how should these lines be said. So she is blowing up, again, the traditional power structure of the playwright says something and we just do it. She's also blown up character. In her play that examined the idea of gender, which was Cloud 9, it was set ostensibly, at least the first act, in the most patriarchal of all times, and that was India under the British Raj. So again, class and caste, so you had socio-economic structure and gender structure that were very, very rigid. So that's what was set, and yet every single character is played by someone who is either of the wrong race or of the wrong gender, the wrong being from a technical, realistic perspective. And her whole point was to blow up this idea of character, to make it very apparent to the audience that this actor is not this character. And what am I saying by doing that? What am I trying to point out by deliberately making this disconnect between the actor and the character? So not just non-realistic, not just sort of Brechtian theatricalism in reminding the audience that they're watching a play, but taking that Brechtian theatricalism even further in the service of an idea. Now, the fact of the matter is, it doesn't always work. Lots of people don't like her plays because they are sometimes hard to follow, or the characters can be off-putting, or it can be surrealistic to the point of not being able to understand it. But for many people, they do work. And when they do work, they serve as a really deep and powerful exploration of an idea and a way of using the tools of the theater to upend traditional power structures, to say, okay, this is the way it's always been done, and I understand there's reasons for that, but what happens if I turn it on its head? What happens if I break it apart? What happens if I use my power as a playwright to speak not just to the audience, but to the grand history of writing that has existed before? And in doing so, her plays have really changed the game. They have opened the way for the last 30 years of playwrights to do things that didn't exist before. This little slash, it seems like nothing. You see that in, I would say, most modern plays written today, trying to capture that idea of realistic or hyper-realistic dialogue. You see people willing to be truly experimental with things like plot and character in the service of an idea, especially British playwrights. If we think of Sarah Kane, or any of the what they call in-your-face playwrights of the last 20 years, they owe a huge debt to Caryl Churchill, Jez Butterworth, all those sort of folks. So that's Caryl Churchill. Those are her plays. They're really fun. They're really weird. You might check out some of them on YouTube. Hope you enjoy.